All right. Now we're rocking and rolling. How's everything, man?
Hey, everything's great, man. Thanks for sharing the pod, man. I think I'm completely through everything that you have on the Apple library at this point. Man, these are crazy. I shot you the message on LinkedIn. I think I was probably 3 or 4 episodes in. I'm like, this is great, right? Like my partners will tell you, right? I'm one of those classic overthinkers. So the way that you record the shows, right? I'm like, no, this is perfect. I don't have time to think, right? I'm gonna go. But yeah, I just wrapped up a few days ago the episode with Gordon at Float House. Oh man, that was awesome. That was really cool. Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And I want to say, like, I appreciate it because the world's a little crazy these days. So, you get a lot of mixed reviews,
Yeah.
but it's awesome when I hear from people that get it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, there's no intro, there's no flashy bit. I'm like, that's not it's the story, and get it in, get it out, and quit fucking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
what we do.
I like it.
So yeah, I'll give you a backstory there, so going into this. I know you listen to those episodes, but just so you know, we did a rebrand a long time ago. Not a long time ago, about a couple months ago. So we actually have about 300 episodes that are on our YouTube channel that are a different brand. It was called Free Mind Local, and then the other one. So just so you're aware, it's been going on for about 4 years. There's a little over 250 episodes in total of stories of different places like yourself and stuff like that. This is just our new rebrand. So
Yeah. No, that's wild. I think I caught that on one of the episodes too. So
yeah,
I got some of those ones queued up. Yeah, I haven't jumped in, but I read a little bit about it. Yeah, that's exciting as well.
same format. Yeah, same format. So we joke around that it's the realest thing on the internet, So, but yeah, man, we'll jump right in as we are right now, real quick for the intro that I do. If you can do first and last name, your position, and then the business, and we'll roll right in.
Yeah, you bet. Josh Furbish, president and founder of Ground Game Inc.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited because we get to talk service now. Because I talk to so many manufacturers and I nerd out with them, but I want to talk about the behind the scenes work that you and I like. I know when you reached out, you're like, you want other service guys in it, and I'm like, I'm one of one. I own my business 100%, and I'm a solopreneur. I don't compete with anybody because I teach based on my experience. So that's why I love working with other service providers, and I collaborate with them on different projects. So I'm so excited to hear about what you guys do and be able to tell your story on here as well, man.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's I it started that way. I'll probably break a little news on your show here because it is part of the story. If if I can jump into that, right, I'll kind of work my way backwards because this wasn't necessarily the one day the light bulb went off kind of thing with me. It was more a series of micro events, like honestly, over probably the last 15 years that got me where I am today, right? They just kind of kept compounding. And, at one point I even tricked myself that I was never going to be able to do this, right? Like that I missed my window of time for some reason. But yeah, kind of working back, the most recent date, right, was July 27th of 2025. That was my last day in office in my previous role. And also the day that I received the formal acceptance of Ground Game Inc. being an actual company, right? So really, I mean, as you know, right, all of that means is I submitted the paperwork accurately, gave some money to the state of Minnesota, right, and I set up a website. But a few months prior to that, back in February of 2025, I came out of this digital detox that I went through. So 8 years, no social media, none at all. Including right LinkedIn and all of that good stuff. At that point in time, I had deleted out of my personal device. I had deleted any contacts that were business related as well, right? So I woke up one day and I was down to 74 contacts in my phone. Probably more than half of them were just family. And I just kind of wanted to get back to the basics and just reconnecting with people differently, right? So I had no idea that it was going to take 8 years for me to kind of light things back up, right? I flipped everything back on after having some conversations with, a few folks who were close to me. They kind of knew that there was this potential career change coming, that I had shifted a little bit, right? And, then I started making strangers with friends on the internet. Man, I say that out loud, and I really hope that my kids never hear me say that. But, through some of those folks that I kept in touch with, during my detox, I started connecting with some founders, right, and hearing their stories. And one in particular, his name is Vasa Martinez. He founded GrowthBuster, which is another service company, right? Digital marketing company. But also, he's the founder of a beverage company called Perfy. And Perfy's in the better for you functional category. They get lost a little bit in the space because they're not health, right? It's not Olipop or Popular, those kinds of things. Their active ingredients are, ashwagandha, L-theanine, turmeric, right? But Vasa kind of formulated these products that had this like 90s nostalgia flavor pack, right? So, he's got Dr. Perfy, which, as you can imagine, that's taking on something, right, in the big soda frame. He has a fruit punch that reminded me exactly of the first time that I tasted Hawaiian punch back in whatever that was, 1990 or 1991, right? And I really kind of got into his story. And when he and I connected, it just started with the through the keyboard stuff. But eventually, right, we started having some conversations, and there were some shared experiences that we had. And I just loved his story. I loved his mission, right, of what he was going after, and really kind of trying to shake up our entire food ecosystem and eliminate sugar, right? And, his kind of pet cat of sugar alternatives or natural sugars, for instance, aren't fake sugar, right? And like just kind of bouncing some things like that off of each other. And his story, much like so many others, all had this one statement: I bet on myself. Right. And through my connection with Vasa and hearing him say that was kind of my straw that broke the camel's back moment. Right. And at that point, I just knew. I knew I was going to do it. I had no idea what it was. I knew that I was starting something. Right. And that was February. So really started putting pen to paper. The decade prior to that, I operated a small chain of bottle shops in the Minneapolis metro or Minnesota metro area. And, not huge, but it was a 75-year rich history. And, when I had the opportunity to take the reins over there, what really drew me to it was, I had next to absolute autonomy on how to kind of move this operation in and out. Right. So it really scratched this itch for me for a very long time until the day that it didn't. You know what I mean? And when that kind of hit, I really got to thinking about like, man, what's going to be next? And I really started thinking about, the decade that I had operating and all these amazing brands, right, that came in with a rocket ship into this market and these brands that I was just such a huge fan of and so honored to be part of, helping them establish and stand up in this market within my shops and how we could get the word out and connect them to their ideal customers. But just as fast as, most of them came in, they crashed. Right. Mm-hmm. And, those that know me know that my OCD takes over from a journaling perspective, like throughout my office. Right. Like you're going to see Sino notebooks, like, and all of this stuff all over the place. Right.
Hey, we're right there, man. We're right there.
I love it. I'm just constantly taking notes of all this stuff. So I really started capturing, right, what were the steps that these brands took, right? What was it that caused, one, to stay in it for the long term versus the folks that were here for, a year, 18 months, 2 years at best. And eventually, all of those notes and the years of notes that I had got fed into ChatGPT one day. And I'm like, just trying to form.
I did that 12 months ago, the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And it kind of helped me formulate like what's my unique role in this? What's my skill set in this? Like, and is there something in there that I can, bring to market myself? And that was such a huge moment for me as well. But really, I would say if there was a moment in time that this happened, I had no idea it did at the time, is all the way back in July of 2013. And back then I was in the telecom industry, running a national B2B sales team. And I walked into a sales training in July of 2013, and about halfway through day one, I realized I wasn't really in a sales training. It was just it was completely different from anything that I'd ever seen before. These guys are talking about deep-rooted relationships, right? And these subcomponents of how you grow a healthy business and all in this way to, help us as sellers better communicate with business operators. But, I left on day one and called my wife and I was like, holy smokes, this is nuts, right? Like what I am learning about business, just like completely throughout, my years of schooling and things like that. And I just gravitated towards it. And I connected with these facilitators, at a pretty high level. We stayed in communication even after I left that company. We worked on some small projects here and there and kind of spitballed. So it moved on from this mentorship to this friendship with these two. And, I know that you broke some pretty big news on this show already, right? So this is the first time that I'm saying it to anybody other than my partners and my wife. But as of 3 weeks ago, the two guys that owned that company became partners of mine here at Ground Game. And it's pretty exciting stuff. They actually—
That's awesome.
Yeah. Just a total full, kind of full circle lens into what we were doing. And yeah, these guys bring a ton of experience within the space, right? They work with some large companies in the CPG space, like Sun Foods, Superfoods, right? And, the original superfood manufacturer that was out there, and helping them kind of gain some revenue shares and different ways to kind of exploit it. But, outside of CPG, they've also worked with, Kawasaki, Subaru, and all this stuff. So, so it's great to not be a solopreneur anymore, right? And kind of understand, what my role is here and how to get these things out. So, as exciting as it is to be out there kind of floating on your own, it's always nice to be able to look around and, who knows, maybe even place blame on one of them, right? Or something.
I tell you, I have to be honest. I have to tell people that I cheat in a certain way. Like I'm a solopreneur and I have it all by myself. My girlfriend also owns her own business, so I do have a sounding board, so I don't feel like so much in an island sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's like so she has they do solar installation around the Mid-Atlantic region and stuff like that with Tesla batteries and solar paneling and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she understands all those mechanics, and we get to bounce ideas off each other. So I used to, before her and I were together, it was rough. It was very isolating and it was very lonely. You know what I mean? Like to be able to throw ideas around. So I get it.
Yeah, lonely when you say that. Like that was the one thing that I wasn't prepared for in the early days, right? And I know we're all
so lonely.
It is, right? Like even when things are going right, you get those wins, and you're looking around like, oh, high five myself again today.
Exactly it.
Yeah, having a partner, and that's one of the things that I'm certainly blessed with as well. If I didn't have my wife kind of kicking me in the background, she works for a small company. In the software space, right? And supports a lot of very key initiatives for them. So having that sounding board certainly took me through some of those, like, did I make the right decision kind of, immediate, kind of feelings that you get.
When so walk me through, like, so are you in Minneapolis or just you're in Minnesota as a whole?
Yeah. So, one of the projects that I'm working on right now, we do cover the whole state of Minnesota. I am down in the metro area now, just west of Minneapolis by about 10 miles. Been down here for quite a while, but if you're familiar with what a map of Minnesota looks like, there's that goofy little bump that you're like, did they get lost drawing the boundary lines? That should be Canada. That's where I'm from. So about as isolated as you could be in the state of Minnesota. Grew up way up on the Canadian border. So, I know the territory and the market, not just here in the metro, but across the state very, very well, and have a lot of contacts there. So, that's one of the things when I do engage with new clients, right? And they come in with this thought of what Minnesota is. When I have to explain things like, tip to tip, we're talking about a 10-hour run, right? And, in particular, it's fun when it's people from New England and they're like 10 hours and you're in the same state. I'm like, yeah, 100%, man. They're like, we cover 3. So trying to get them to understand, the density is all down here in the metro, but here in Minnesota, we actually like the elements as crazy as it can be on a day that it's 10 below outside. My skin would fall off if I'm out there for longer than 5 minutes, right? But we get out, we snowmobile, we go and hit the lakes and ice fish, and certainly in the summertime we scatter all over the place. So the community that I'm from, right, like there's a whopping 1,000 people in the county, right, way up in northern Minnesota. But between Memorial Day and Labor Day, there's like 20,000 people that are going to visit, right? So, the importance of connecting a lot of these brands to the greater Minnesota area, that's part of the educational components of what we bring to it when somebody says, I want to take Minnesota. Cool. There's a lot more to it than Minneapolis and St. Paul. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah,
with that, the next part that I'm going to say, you can tell me you don't want this in there, but I genuinely, from a personal level, I'll delete this. But I do want to know how, like, and I don't mean this superficially. Is everything, is it the way is the media really exacerbating this, or
yeah,
is it disrupting? Let's talk about it from a business owner standpoint. So I deal with in Pennsylvania, just to be honest, and this is not a biased opinion, this is a fact. My retailers or the owners are, you know, everybody's in a different spot, and we have raids that are happening quite a bit in the Pennsylvania area, and even in that other area. And I'm just curious, like, I think a lot of people don't realize that it affects our industry as well, and it's people's lives. And a lot of times when it comes down to these situations, it's a lot of people that work as staff in the businesses that we sell to.
yeah.
So it is relevant to this conversation, and I will delete anything you want as this, but just out of curiosity, like, how is that operating with chaos lenses nationally and globally in your area, and trying to operate a business while also that chaos going around?
Yeah. Hey, look, great question. Please don't cut this out. It is very important, right? The sad thing about what's going on right now is that we just did this 5 years ago, with some other unrest in the area. And as an operator during that period of time, 5 years ago, it was certainly a different lens from what I have today. But the empathy that I have for our retail partners in this area, and in supporting some of the brands that I am inside of them, man, I mean, it's about as high as it can be, right? And we have some amazing shops. Certainly as you get into the like dead center of the metro, some amazing non-alcoholic bottle shops that I've heard things like, and we're operating at about 50% of the foot traffic of what we did this time last year, and it's dry January, right? Like, this is Super Bowl time for shops like that. And it is sad, and it is scary, and it's tense. The further outside of the ring you go, the lighter that it gets. But the closer into those hubs that you get, I mean, it's palatable everywhere where you turn. And not just the shops that I support, but the coffee shops where I have to go and knock out my invoices and all that kind of stuff. When you hear things from these operators like, folks aren't coming out, they're not leaving their house. I'm down to 20 days of payroll, right? Those things. It's sad. I think a lot of folks can look at our market and take a look at some of these amazing fortune companies that we have, right? Certainly, Target, Argo, 3M, all of those are here. But, much like how I explained the state, right, and the density all being in the metro, we're really all in this together, and that includes our small businesses. And our small business community here is most certainly feeling the pinch right now. For me personally, and some of the projects that I'm supporting, again, working with a non-alcoholic beer, very similar to Float House, right, called Triple Switch Brewing. And some of the tasting campaigns that we had set up and we were ready to go. I canceled almost every tasting event I canceled all of the tasting events that we had last weekend that were inside Minneapolis, right? It just out of an abundance of caution. And, thankfully, we got on last weekend with our city intact. We didn't see some of the same things we did 5 years ago, which I know everybody is incredibly grateful for. But yeah, it's a wild time, right? And you sprinkle in, what's going on from a civil perspective right now in the community, and thinking about the client that I'm working with Triple Switch. On top of all of that, we also have this regulatory component on the other side. So, chaos is probably a light way to say it.
The only way I can think about it. It's like,
Yeah,
but it's not even justified to what it is. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist or anything like that. But it's what it is. And I see it in front of my eyes as I'm on the road. I'm not at my desk all the time. I'm out there I'm with the buyers, just like I'm sure you are as well. And because our industry as a adult beverage, there's a lot of corporations like Pepsi and things like that. Yeah, they can do telesell. They can have all their telemarketing in Chicago. But when you have a small brand, you have to shake their hand. You have to look them in the eye. They have to feel your energy and know that they can trust you. It's not sold through a screen. And I think that that's the biggest thing for me, is thinking about you and other people and all these business owners that, like, it's the reverb of the frequency and the vibration that's going to exist afterwards. And it's that there's not a bank that's going to come in and give you that loan. If you got 20 days of payroll, you got 20 days of payroll, most likely probably 14.
Right.
And even then you might have 10. And like in that sense, we're talking about February. And that's the thing that like all this everything needs to be talked out. And this is not a bias thing, but I think that it's empathy is the word. Sorry, I'm getting emotional actually unintentionally. Is like empathy is the
All
word,
right.
is like empathy is the only thing I can think of is that, you know, mom and pops and independents aren't generationally wealthy. They don't open up a corner liquor store because their dad gave it to them. Sometimes it happens. Let me rephrase that. Sometimes it is. But when I talk about that, they're not giving 17 of them. They're not giving them $1 million bank account to float through this. I mean, you just said it. These guys are telling you 20 days of labor, like 20 days of budget to go. And unfortunately, like it's it's a divisive thing right now it's I know that this conversation will take a bunch of different directions with the audience as far as like why it should happen or anything like that. And I'm not taking an opinion when I say this, in the sense that I'm not taking an opinion as to why it should happen, but my opinion is the way it is happening is not right. And that's a separate argument. Is the argument of why and how, and or not, the how stays here, but the why, that's irrelevant. That's politics and all this other shit that's irrelevant. It's the how and the why. It's and how is why it's how it's happening. Sorry, I'm all scattered right now. It's the how it's happening that I don't stand for, and it's the disrespectful dehumanization and the empathy that is lacking in the activation of the program is irrelevant of whether you believe it should happen or not. If you believe it should happen the way it's happening, that's fine. I think what scares me is looking at it. I had to ask you when you mentioned Minneapolis, because we speak in such broad stroke terms when we're not in it. And when we're not seeing it, we're not feeling it, and we say, oh, this is all this is all that. No, it's not. This
Yeah.
is individual families. This is individual lineage. Like if somebody loses their business, I don't think people understand, like going to bankruptcy and things like that, that's a generational skip. And if they have vendor bills and they weren't expecting this, because like you just said, they just recovered from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like some of them might have just started breathing from the loans they had to take out and just got finished them. And I think those are the facts outside of everything else that I think nobody wants to talk about too, is that, you know, if this all were to end tomorrow and this game were to walk away, because that's what it is right now. This is a threatening game to strike fear into people, because that's how it's being played out, and that's how it's being executed. The why is irrelevant anymore. The
Yeah.
how is the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think, Nate, you said so much that we're certainly cut from the same cloth, right?
Yeah.
I'll say that. Um, Absolutely, I have my opinions on how this could go, right, or should be going. And yeah, the last thing that I want to do is throw gas on the fire of what's happening right now. But what I will say, right, going out and meeting with these operators and being face to face with them, the one thing that's apparent to me, right, much like it was years ago, right, we are going to lift each other up in this community, and that's incredibly important, right? And it is. It's the small mom and pop shops. I have a handful of accounts that I routinely check on that grandpa started it, right? And now we're on grandson or granddaughter, right? And watching kind of how these families came up. And that is a big part of our metro community here in the state of Minnesota. It's not a bunch of surprise, right? This is not a transplant territory where people are just dying to come to, right?
And I want people to understand the hand down, the generational hand down you're talking about is not what I mean. I'm not talking about generational. Yeah, that's not generational wealth. This is the business. If it stays open, we survive as a family. If it closes, we're on the picket line, or whatever. Like
Yep, 100%, right? And that's where as dark as it can seem at times, right? Just leaning into the positivity that we have.
Yeah.
When we all recognize that we're doing the best that we can together to keep this thing going, that's kind of where we need to stay. And there's going to be noise and there's going to be distractions going on out there. And, I'll continue to be optimistic that eventually communication is going to play a role in this. Because I can assure you right now, there's no communication between any of the parties that are involved here on how we can find a pathway to move forward and get back to normalcy.
And I don't want this I didn't want this to hijack the conversation, but I wouldn't be myself, and the audience would agree that I wouldn't be myself if I didn't address it.
Yeah.
And not from a bias or an opinion standpoint, just from a reality of business and a reality of lives, because at the end of the day, you and I aren't selling software, we're selling lives and we're selling consumer packaged goods. So we need the human beings to be in light, and we need people to be in a positive place so they can enjoy our stuff and live their lives fully. It's all part of this. So let's go on. Let's kind of backtrack prior to what's currently going on, because
Yeah.
let's talk about a big irony is, like you just touched on, dry January in Minnesota. Minnesota, prior to all of this, was the number one talked about state in the hemp beverage industry. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Is that yes, you guys, like, from a business standpoint, you missed the biggest one for what was leading up to be. I have a lot of sympathy for you guys, and I don't envy anything of that. But I want to talk about prior to that. You living there, you seeing what was going on. What are some of the mechanics? And I want this to be advice for the other states, because right now we have a bill in Pennsylvania that we hired a lobbyist and we got all this stuff going. We're getting ready to do the signature campaign to get a hemp beverage bill pushed through. The bill's written. We have a Senator Malagari, shout out, Southampton, Pennsylvania. He sponsored our bill. His staff wrote it, and now it's going to head into committee soon. Tell other states, like, what are some of the mentalities? What are some of the programming? What are some of the things to unify yourself in some sort of organizational structure? Because you guys nailed it. I mean, what you guys did, and you feel free to tell me it's just the Minnesota way, is just run through the wall and find a snowbank later, I'm fine with that answer. I mean, that's a real life answer if it's the truth.
That's pretty accurate. We're obviously incredibly proud of what we've done, certainly within the hemp beverage space, right? I think it was maybe about 18-ish months into what we kind of saw coming up in the market here. When I was reading about some of these bills that were being introduced down in like Louisiana, right? And the stigma that still comes with the category and how we talk about this plant, federally and those types of things. I never would have thought that there would have been these other states that seem to be pushing back on recreational use and things like that. That were like, oh, we get it, right? And standing here today, knowing that there are both sides of the political aisle in Kentucky, right, are working as hard as they are to protect.
That's the way it is in Pennsylvania.
Right.
We had zero opposition. And also the weird part is in Pennsylvania, we have the alcohol industry and the hemp beverage industry in lock and step.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think outwardly, right, in what we're doing in this space, for lack of a better term, this was one part accident, right?
Beautiful accident.
Yeah. But man, if I go back to, I know you're a craft beer guy, right? Are you familiar with Surly Brewing?
Oh yeah, I know your area out there really well. The old fist on there, yeah.
Oh man, look.
I even know Shortsbury. Isn't that Minnesota too?
Which one is it? I'm sorry.
I think it's Shortsbury. Maybe they might have closed years ago. Maybe, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I didn't derail. You're good.
No worries.
What's the spotted cow? Is that you guys too?
Wisconsin. That's
okay. Gotcha. Sorry. I didn't mean to mix them up. I didn't mean to mix them up.
Yeah, we got to throw that one back to Unglamorous. They're in Wisconsin. They did it well. But Surly, when they kind of came up back in the day, and this was another one, just an incredibly inspiring story that made me want to do what I'm doing today. Right, was helping brands like that. And I remember that buzz. Gosh, when was this? Like 2007, right? Like I'm working. I was in the restaurant space at the time, and all of a sudden, like, people just started getting nutty about Surly, right? And we saw Furious cans and like their tall boy can and all of this kind of stuff, right? And folks are going, 20, 30 minutes north out of the metro to get this product because there's only one place to get it, right? And kind of watching what they did and the steps that they took. Now, look, not to take anything away from what Summit Brewing did, right? Mm-hmm. Summit was like...
That was the one I should have said.
Yeah. Summit is the OG, right, of craft here in Minnesota. But when Surly showed up, and then the next thing you know, you look around and there's 4 more breweries in Northeast Minneapolis. And then, holy smokes, we've got 50 breweries in the state of Minnesota now, and all this stuff. And just that rise from 2007 to about 2011, right, where, it was just nonstop. And then in 2011, really it became about the quality of the product, right? Like, you couldn't just take your home brew and open up the shop in your garage and make $1 million, right? You really had to work hard at it. And it's very similarly with hemp, right? It was 1 or 2 hemp beverages that kind of slid in the early stages. Another company that I've started working with was certainly in the early days there, not in a like seltzer kind of beverage product, but the company is called Botany Farms, and they had the single dose like shots, right? Like they were the first one that I saw in this market that rolled in to my shops with, the little 50 ml, 10 milligram THC shots, right? And, they did a really good job of kind of slow building. And then there was a couple other ones that came up, and it was so reminiscent of what we saw in this market from a craft brewery perspective, right? That all of a sudden you fast forward another year, a year and a half, and almost every major national brand is in this market competing for space, right? And now even crazier, right? They're trying to get slotted in at Target, right? And all this stuff. So, watching the legitimacy of this category, to me, that's one of the most exciting things. But outwardly, if you're in a market where there's still a stigma behind this product, maybe not in January because it's cold, but please come and visit us in June and just see what's going on in this market with this category. Because there is such a responsible component to what is going into it, right? And Nate, I've heard you tell your story. I think 3 years sober, correct?
Yep, as of December 26th. Yep.
Yeah. No, amazing, right? And, this was the first year my wife and I participated in Dry January a couple of times. We turned the calendar over into this year, and when we started Dry January, a couple people even brought it up to us. They're like, "Oh, you're doing Dry January," and our response became, "We're actually doing Dry Indefinite." I don't know why. Like, I am just waiting for February 1st to show up so I can have alcohol again. Like, I don't have, like, sure, the Super Bowl is coming and I might have a, glass of wine or a cocktail or something like that at that point. But, what is happening, in particular, with the rise of the THC category in this market, that's what really started to bring the rest of the functional category with it. So we're seeing folks that are entering this market now with lion's mane and corset-based products, right? And those things that are really starting to take off. Clean energy is really carving out, caffeine alternative, carving out this whole new lane in this market. So, the stigma behind, oh my goodness, but it's cannabis, right? And like, not to throw shade at our lawmakers in the state. I know that they're hard at work here, but one of the craziest things that I've had to do for my client Triple Switch recently was go back out to all of these accounts that we established some product at. And I had to put a very specific sticker on the front of it, which was the exact same insignia that we already had on the can and the package, right? Except it had the poison control number on it. And the irony that I have to put a sticker with the poison control number on a cannabis beverage in the state of Minnesota, even though it's going to be sold next to something like 151, right? Like, come on, this is really, really silly. And that's really what I would encourage in some of these other markets that are still dabbling. By all means, we need some regulation. We need some uniformity within this category. I don't know that that's, a fraction of a nearly untraceable percentage of THC, right? There's got to be a better lane in there. And to me, and this could just be because we're used to it, right? 10 milligram is the cap here, right? 5 milligram is the preferred serving. And when I think about where this category is going, which is eventually going to branch out into the on-prem segments, right? And things like that. And we've heard this in some of the other markets around the Midwest where we're trying to get some footing for this brand as well. Well, from an on-prem perspective, it's really not profitable, right? They're having one and then they're staring at a wall for an hour. If we just throttle that a little bit, right? And they can have 3 or 4 or 5 milligram cans and that, and enjoy the football with you. Now we're talking about something completely different.
It's funny because I try to distill it down to everybody where I'm like, it's like 5 milligrams is like a Miller Lite Pilsner, like a 4 or 5%. 10 milligrams is probably like a 7-8% IPA. You can start getting the 20s and 30s. You're serving them barley wines, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, who would serve? And then when you say that, they're like, oh, and I'm like, that's my job to educate you more on the balances of the two. So I appreciate what you just said about them staring about the on-premise, because over here it's the same thing. It's a lot of hesitation, and I'm like, guys, if it's just like tips trading or whatever you guys call it over there too, it's like you know what to look for and you know what you're serving. It's no different as long as you understand the dose correlation to ABV.
Yeah. And I think, part of how we've gotten to this point from a regulatory component in the state, right, is that when we legalize recreational use, the frame and the components of what went into that bill, they were sound, but they weren't without guardrails.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And there was a lot of finite detail that never really got combed through. So here it is, it's recreational, but we are, I don't even know where we're at right now, right? A couple of years, 3 years into it's legal, let's do it. And the only places from a retail perspective, right, that are operating in the state were already established dispensaries, right? And look, shout out to Rise, right? That's an amazing business that they've got going. Yeah, right. Look, and I'm glad that you came to Minnesota to help us out with that.
And I'm a customer. If you're watching the show, I buy from you weekly, so don't be offended. I just think it's funny that you're in business.
Totally, right. And yeah, look, there's a lot of, back to the small mom and pops, right? There's a lot of those folks that are waiting in the wings to get their shot at retail. And one of the small shops that we do have that's operating here, it's called Sweet Leaves in downtown Minneapolis. Shout out to Adam. You owe me for this one. Kidding. Right.
I'm coming in for my free drink in a couple months.
Yeah. But we have these businesses signing leases to operate in our state, and then they got drug along for a year, 2 years, right? And all of this kind of stuff.
Back to cash flow. That's what it is. It's because if you don't have the capital, that's what the game is. This game is like, and I hate to speak it, but it's like, tell me how it's not, and not you, but like for the government, tell me how it's not a bank account drain game.
Yeah,
exactly. Just to let the ones that have the money be able to succeed and get it when you just stall. It's the same with landlords in real estate. You sign on, you want to open your restaurant. It's like, well, we can't open for another 12 months. Well, this permit happened. Well, it's 24 months. And now all of a sudden the guy just spent 24 months and he might not have made $1. And he might not have the money to open. And then when he opens, everybody's talking shit because he has shitty tables and he's got bad this. And it's like, well, the dude just spent 2 years living for free. So he didn't have any money when it finally got open.
Give him a minute.
He's got a lot of catching up to do on that bank account.
For sure.
It's little things. I appreciate talking. This is why I like talking to other service people, to be honest with you, because those are the nuances that people forget about. Because they'll judge somebody and be like, oh, he opened and he didn't have all the bells and whistles, but they don't know the backstory. And they don't know what the guy went through, or the girl went through to get that place going, and what that passion and that resilience and that negative bank account for 6 months while they're leading up, and they kept betting, like you said in the beginning, they betted on themselves.
Yeah. And
whether it took them a year or it took them 3 months, they opened the doors.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's what we lose. We lose that independent perspective and respect for people that aren't operating as a corporation, and they're not operating with a foundational bank account. And I think if we can, as myself included, give some people some grace, whether it's the person working the register or because there was a towel on the floor when you went into the bathroom and you wrote a review online that the food was horrible because it was a dirty bathroom. I mean, we need to understand that there's real ramifications for all of this. And I want to also tie back to your digital detox, because I'm sure that was a playing factor in it, is that we lost, you and I are on the street. You and I shake the hands. We look in the eyes. We lost that. And as much as I wish I could teleport to Minnesota and sit with you and have this interview, we're doing what we can to get the stories out there and to get this mission out there. But I think this year, more so than anything, I want people to understand that, like, engage with your local business owners, whether it be a coffee shop, a bar. Like, don't come in and say, let me see the manager. Like, say, hey, who's the owner? I want to say hi. You know what I mean? Who knows? It might be the guy 6 doors down from you in the same neighborhood.
100%.
That's what people don't realize. And sometimes it's the guy that's working the register that you just thought was the host, and he actually is the owner because the host called out and he came in and you might have just met him. And so it's like, engage people and look them in the eye and get to know them more. And I appreciate that, because I know that's a big part of your culture. When I was up there in Minnesota, it's a very human connection, welcoming and loving area.
Yeah.
You feel that vibe when you go to Minnesota. You're like, oh, these people care. Like, they look you in the eye when you check out. They say one of the things I remember when I was there, I was at a trip to Sprecher Brewery over in the other side, not in the same area, I know, but I did drive up through Minneapolis and Minnesota, And it was like, I actually caught a good day. I guess it was their son or something. People were waving at each car that came by. And it reminded me of the early 90s when we moved from Philadelphia to West Virginia from Philadelphia. And me and my parents were driving in the U-Haul truck. And every day afterwards, every single person you pass goes like this on the steering wheel. And my dad's like, what is going, he didn't understand like what was going on. But I just want people to know that there's just awesome communities out there in Minnesota and Minneapolis and in St. Paul. They are.
Yeah. Minnesota nice is what we call it. It's very real, right? And yeah, I mean, that's part of this. But, you know, Nate, you brought up one of the other things that's really a cornerstone of what we do at Ground Game when you were talking about, you know, frontline staff, right? And we were so quick for the slightest reason to step back and pop in that negative Yelp review, right? Or whatever, or just trash a company online because, man, yeah, the paper towel, right? And look, I'm very much a believer in details, and you have to have that hyper level of discipline to get those things right. But yes, please have some grace, right? And you know, part of what we do at Ground Game, right, is we help these brands go out and get established in the marketplace. The very first thing that we do once we've established that relationship with, you know, the founders and what that vision looks like is execute the relationship of that brand to the retail operators. And yes, to your point, we spend a lot of time with buyers and we spend a lot of time with operators and managers and those things. But most importantly, it's really connecting back out to the frontline staff as well, right? So, you know, as we punch doors for brands in this market today, yes, we want to get on tasting calendars. We want to help these brands kind of, you know, get out and find their core audience. We also want to spend time, you know, with those retail teams, educating them on what this product is. And when you take the time to, you know, whether it's a 15 or a 20-hour a week part-time employee at a bottle shop, just taking 5 minutes to talk to them about what you're trying to accomplish inside their shop goes such a long way, right? In building that trust of now all of a sudden you have this secondary frontline seller that's out there for you that's also believing in your product, right? And more often than not, those are the doormat people. And, you know, in the early stages of framing this company, you know, I thought about the retail landscape and kind of how we really view what this looks like. And more often than not, we kind of forget about it or it's a secondary component. We want doors, right? We want to live on the shelf. You should be more concerned about how your product is turning over, what your sell-through rates are, what your dropout rate looks like, right? And how you've really kind of built up these relationships inside those locations. You know what I mean? And at a time when 1 in 4 positions, jobs in this country are going to have a retail touch point, we should put the attention on it, right? And as one of my partners always likes to say, and this is a great analogy, you would never take a plant and put it on a shelf and walk away from it and expect it to grow and blossom and bloom, right? Why would you do that with your product, right? Like, and you know, sometimes it's that movement from what I see a lot when I'm engaging with these founders. We have an amazing direct-to-consumer DTC experience. We've got 100,000 orders. We've got 500,000 orders, whatever the case may be. We're ready for national retail. Hold on. I'm not saying that you're not, but let's hold on, right? Like, what does national retail mean, right? If you're going to deploy like that, how are you going to support these accounts, right? Because you don't want to be that product that, oh man, I've got an end cap at, you know, a Target, a Walmart, right? Sam's Club, Costco, whatever the case may be. And then 6 months later, you're in that really, you know, dark back aisle with all the red tags on it because your product's getting shipped out, right?
I'm walking by as your competitor doing a dust check, and I'm pointing out to the buyer, "Hey, your plant's growing a beard over here."
100%, right? You know, and those are some of those mechanisms and components, and we often talk about. You know, the vast majority purchasing decisions are still made in aisle, right? Like, regardless of what we think, we are the most informed consumer base that we've ever been throughout history. But we're still waiting until we're standing there in front of it to decide whether or not we're going to buy it, right? And at that point, your brand has to be able to position itself to the consumer, right? From 4 to 6 feet away and connect with them in 30 to 60 seconds, right? Like, that's how quickly you have to do it. So one of the things that we talk about when we speak about, you know, a founder's vision and what that really means, right? Nobody can sell their product the way that a founder can. Right. And I know that there's some folks out there that believe, you know, if you really want to stand your your product up or your brand up in any level of retail, micro market, region, nationally, whatever, the founder's got to be the one out there getting the first 50 accounts or 100 accounts or 1,000 accounts. Like, why? Right? Like, it's typically my question. And I'm not saying that a founder doesn't belong in the trenches. You do. You need to be out there, right? And like, you need to continue to be the face and get out there and put your feet in the aisle, right? Or feet down on the floor. But if formulation and innovation is your thing, right? Like, you can just conceptually see, man, here's a problem, right? And here's a solution. And you can give somebody a reason to believe in that, right? But you're hyper introverted. So, going out and spending 4 hours in a store, talking with customers can drain you or really kind of knock you off your game. Well, look, this is just a foreign territory to some of those folks, right? So, what we like to do is really embed with those founders. And what our ultimate goal is to take what that founder sees and translate it into what a consumer is already feeling, right? And when you do that, that brings the point where a conviction is going to meet that demand in an aisle, right? And that emotion is going to come out, right? Almost every purchase we make is emotional, right? Like, whether we think about it that way or not. So that's part of what we want to shake up. And when you can do that, all of a sudden, these products don't need persuasion. They just need recognition, right? And that's a big part of what we do with these brands. So, as I mentioned a little bit ago, right? Your door count is at 10,000 doors across the country, but only 150 of them have ever made a reorder. Like,
that's the piece of the data game that, like, my public relations degree from Drexel comes in, where I'm like analyzing it. And like, when I get discovery meetings with people, they do that. They do the same thing. And it's, we're ready for this. And I'm like, okay, send me all your data, send me your revenue, send me your accounts by district, blah, blah, blah. And when you get there, I'm not saying everybody's wrong. It's not what I mean. It's that they don't have the lens that they need to have to see the full picture. And that's where people like you and I will be proud of what we do, is teach them that, and also teach them not the lanes in a guardrail, like a rigid way, but the lanes in what you just said. Because a lot of times, the founder, if it is an introvert, because we do get chemists sometimes and engineers and things like that, which traditionally do lend into that area where the social skills of, people don't realize, while we do great jobs at standing there for 2 hours and grabbing strangers in the middle of a grocery store, it's draining. It's a socially draining thing. It's like, you're not manually doing labor. You know what I mean? I grew up in a blue collar family. So when I complain about boring in my job, my family's always like, well, I wish I was bored at my job. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like one of those things where standing there in a 6-foot folding table in the middle of an aisle is not fun. And if you don't show that you're having fun for those whole 2 hours, your face reflects that can. And when that buyer or that customer comes in the next time, they're going to remember, oh yeah, that founder, but he didn't really have a lot of passion behind what he was doing. So why do I care about buying the can? That's what they don't realize sometimes. And we have to do our job and explain to them that every single mechanical, behavioral, psychological, and everything like that is important to the experience. And even so, this as well as I do, when those people are walking by and you're standing at that tasting is one of the most expensive things to a founder to see when they start out, because it's not an immediate ROI. That's the tough part, a tough conversation. But the next part is understanding how it is the top priority. It is imperative. Like, I just try to tell people, I'm like, you can give me the biggest budget in the world and I'll get you in every retailer. But if you do not have a separate budget for in-person, on-premise consumer interactions and engagement, your brand will do nothing, and you will get reorders, like you just said, 5,000 points of distribution and 100 reordered.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
How cool is that? If we got 5,000, guess what? We got 5,000 this year, but next year we can't say 5,000 again. We're going to say 250, and then people are going to say, last year you had 5,000. What the hell happened? It's like, well, we didn't do the integral pieces of liquid to lips and doing the traditional sales tactics, which is letting people tangibly feel here's the next piece. People don't realize how important it is for them to hold your can. It's one thing to get them on the shelf and see them. So visually you grab them. And I'm going to give credit to the hemp beverage space. Is like you just said, this is not a dig on alcohol, but if you want to talk about label transparencies, which is what we're all into now, is clean products and transparency. The most transparent consumable packaged good in the adult space is a hemp beverage that follows the 2018 Farm Bill and has a QR code on it that doesn't send you to some tasting notes where the brewer is going to tell you everything. It shows you every single molecule and every single bacterial possible infiltration inside that can.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that it is the most transparent product on the shelf for consumers today.
Amen. Right.
And doing it right. The ones that are doing it right.
Yes. Preach. Right. Exactly. Yeah, it is crazy. Right. And all of that, right. And the hyper level of transparency in this category, and the stigma still exists. Right.
That's my. Damn, it's on the can. You can't even. Yeah.
A couple of my colleagues and I, we made the joke when the stickering thing in Minnesota came out, that it reminded us of that scene in Tommy Boy, right? Like, but the sticker is on the box, right? Or the warranty is on the box, right?
I just forgot all about that. That's all.
Yeah. Like, what else do we do? Like, it's clean, it's hyper clean, right? Yes, it's been lab tested, and it is crazy. And look, I won't say that there aren't bad actors.
Nope.
Everybody in this category knows that there are bad actors out there, but my goodness, we can continue to focus in on what the sub 5% of the category that may be there, or we can recognize what's going on with the 95% of the people in this space that are just there, bringing it to the edge of what this can be, right? And that's why I'm obviously incredibly passionate about Triple Switch Brewing and what they're doing. And even within this subcategory, right, there's going to be, there are some lanes, and this isn't to throw shade on anybody, but what Triple Switch and I believe Float House is in the same lane, right? These are 0.0 beverages, right? We're not de-alcoholizing. It's not brought through to fermentation, right? And the components that go into making that happen and making your product taste like a beer without ever bringing it through to fermentation, like, oh my gosh, like people would not understand how hard it is to get it to where it is today, let alone understand where everybody in this space is trying to bring that category. So, when you see products that are out and on a shelf, that, look, I get it, but it's 0.5 ABV, and everything that I'm reading from a regulatory perspective says, the point of fermentation, right, is where you have to stop this process. That's a bummer that, that folks are coming in and doing that and trying to gray these lines a little bit. No different, than these clever ways that we've disguised 10,000 milligrams of THC in a package by carving our serving size down to something that no one would ever even consider to be a serving.
But we did the same thing in alcohol. You remember there was a trend where it was a chase to the highest ABV products. And then all of a sudden, years later, we realized it was just sitting on the shelf because, oh, that's right, people don't buy multiple ones of a high ABV and drink them in one night. We don't have the same turn rate.
Exactly.
And I think we make these mistakes a lot, and they're short-sighted, and I do too. And I make these mistakes as well when I tell people this, because we're all human. But at the same time, I think I want to echo what you just said is, I think people need to realize the ratio is 5% to 95%. I'm not a statistician. I'm not a scientist, but I'm going to tell you that's what it is. Anecdotally, I've interviewed dozens and dozens of you guys so far, and I've gotten samples. And I'll tell people to, is this for I'm looking forward. I want to have you guys send me some. I want to get those guys from Switchback on the episode as well. I would love to interview them. I want to try some samples, because I'm going to tell you this story as we're closing out. Is on Christmas Eve, the Float House products we had interviewed the week before. Products landed Christmas Eve. It's been 3 years since I drank alcohol, and I don't miss alcohol in the sense of what it does to me. What I miss is it was all part of me. It was everything about me. I had a brand out there and all kinds of stuff as a portfolio, and it was everything about my life. What I missed was the burn of the IPA. I wanted the enamel ripped off my teeth, and I couldn't. I tried every NA beer that was out there. I got to give credit, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes in. Float House, I'm looking forward to you trying it as well. They nailed it with that double IPA. And I'm not joking. It brought tears to my eyes on Christmas Eve when I felt that enamel come off my teeth. And I had to look at the ABV again. And I was like, nope, they got it. I was like, they got the hot bite on the double IPA that I've been lacking and missing for years.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, there's on my list. Like, I'm excited to get out and check those ones out.
I'll introduce you guys to on LinkedIn as well. You and Gordon and Jared.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll make sure to get we'll get a 4-pack out to you. One of our friends.
No, you have my address.
Yeah. And Paul and Wes, that you guys, on the backside of Triple Switch, man, they've got an incredible story as well, and a lot of it, I know is going to resonate with you. I think Paul now has been, I think he's 8 years, if not a little bit longer. And, his first forte into a founder or as a founder was with a product way back in the day called Hairless Dog, which was a 0.0 craft IPA or craft beer.
I'm like fumbling through words because they were my client.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Jeff Hollander was the other partner of that. And he's in the insurance industry, and they were my client during COVID. It was one of the first NA beers I brought on the portfolio.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, Paul's gonna die when I say.
Oh, this is nuts. I love that.
Yeah. So
I might have met Paul when I first met Jeff in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. When he tells the story of the stigma of being the guy in the back corner at the house party, sipping Diet Coke and crushing Skittles all night, right? Like he had COVID before he knew COVID was a thing. No one was going to that guy. You know what I mean?
Oh, this is all, dude. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to be really honest with you. You just took your full circle. I'm a big Universal guy, so I'll get hippy dippy for a second. You had your first full circle with those guys partnering with you.
Yeah.
This is when I had Hairless Dog. I was just getting in, and I just started to try to get sober. It was a super challenging time when I had that brand, and it was at the beginning of COVID. It was right before and then into COVID, and I felt such an emotional pain because I wasn't able to do what I knew I could do because I was trying to get sober and all this stuff. I am feeling so viscerally good to have that conversation with them and put his story out there with his new brand, because it is one of those brands where you're probably the same way. If something's going on during that contract and you don't feel like you were able to do what you knew you could do for them, it'll always eat you. And that's the difference between us and a lot of other companies that just churn brands.
Yeah.
And so I really want you to know that this is a serious full circle thing that I am really looking forward to having this conversation. I already reached out to Jeff years ago, and he's in the insurance business now, because I said, hey, here's what we're doing. Love to work with you again. But I'm excited, man. This is cool.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so happy that we connected. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Look, amazing show. Obviously excited for this one to air, but I'm excited to continue to listen. You're an outstanding host. I love the way that these conversations go with everybody that you have on. What you're doing very similarly to what I'm doing. Man, tip of the cap to you. That's amazing. And I'll get with Paul and Wes, man. I think they'll want to jump on for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, hey, I want to thank you so much and kind of close out the way that you've heard me on a lot of these episodes, man. It's just, I need everybody to understand that this is your first episode. There is no script. There's no agenda. There are no questions. Josh and I have never met before. We exchanged a few messages on LinkedIn logistically to get this together. Josh is over in Minnesota. I am over in Pennsylvania. This is how strangers connect. Okay. This is how you need to meet people. When you're walking down the street, look people in the eye, hold the door for somebody, whether it's male or female, it doesn't matter. Send out some positive interactions into the world. We are all in this crazy, destructive, and beautiful life together, and we're just trying to figure it out. It doesn't matter if you're 70 or if you're 17, just don't be an asshole and just get out there and just treat people right. And Josh, to you, there is no questions and there's no scripts, and you took a huge chance with some big Minnesota cojones to get on here. And one of the things is the courage of hopping on without any questions from your perspective. I give you credit, and I need to publicly say this as I do with every guest, is that this is your example of what you just did is what the world needs to be doing. Is I will go into that conversation with an open mind. I will let that person learn about me. I will be vulnerable, and in turn, that person will be vulnerable with me, and we will tell a story together in real time, without scripts, without sponsors, and just get the story out there. And that's my soapbox on this, man. So anything else you want to plug in there? Get your website up there one more time, and give your first and last name so everybody knows where to find you on LinkedIn, and check out what you're doing, man.
Yeah. Josh Furbish, Ground Game Inc. You can find us at www.groundgameinc.com. Pretty easy to remember. Or find me on LinkedIn. I'll be running around there. I'm going to get back to blogging a little bit here in the near future as well. I took a couple months off from that, but and if you're not going to connect with me, make sure that you connect with Nate. Follow this podcast, follow his other podcast, and if you're a founder out there wondering, how crazy this could be, I assure you, this was not painful. It's any conversation. And I'm looking forward to having another one. And my friend, I will make it out to your neck of the woods sometime. So,
and me in reverse. I want to go sit at one of those on-premise places and consume a product. I need to experience that personally.
Yeah.
I need to feel that comfort and I need that.
Yeah. You just drop me a line anytime that you're going to be in Minnesota, man. We'll show you.
Oh, it's happening. All right. Excellent, Josh.
Right.
Hey, you have a good rest of your day, buddy. Thank you so
Cheers,
much,
man.
man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye.
Take care.